How did the power of Israel expand under the reign of King David? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Samuel on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 18, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 2 Samuel chapter 8, verse 1, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Samuel chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. After this, it came to pass that David attacked the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheg, Ammah, from the hand of the Philistines. Then he defeated Moab. Forcing them down to the ground, he measured them off with a line. With 2 lines he measured off those to be put to death, and with 1 full line those to be kept alive. So the Moabites became David's servants, and brought tribute. David also defeated Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, as he went to recover his territory at the river Euphrates. David took from him 1,000 chariots, 700 horsemen, and 20,000 foot soldiers. Also David hamstrung all the chariot horses, except that he spared enough of them for 100 chariots. When the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David killed 22,000 of the Syrians. Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became David's servants and brought tribute. So the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that had belonged to the servants of Hadadezer, and brought them to Jerusalem. Also from Betah and from Beerothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took a large amount of bronze. When Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated all the army of Hadadezer, then Toi sent Joram his son to King David to greet him and bless him, because he had fought against Hadadezer and defeated him, for Hadadezer had been at war with Toi. And Joram brought with him articles of silver, articles of gold, and articles of bronze. King David also dedicated those to the Lord, along with the silver and gold that he had dedicated from all the nations which he had subdued, from Syria, from Moab, from the people of Ammon, from the Philistines, from Amalek, and from the spoil of Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David made himself a name when he returned from killing 18,000 Syrians in the valley of Salt. He also put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And the Lord preserved David wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered judgment and justice to all his people. Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the army. Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder. Zadok the son of Ahitub and Ahimelech the son of Abiathar were priests. Seraiah was the scribe. Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over both the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were chief ministers. What we must realize here is that in chapter 8 we have a passage of time. These battles didn't happen overnight, nor does it suggest that these battles happened one right after the other. Rather, chapter 8 serves as a summary of wars that occurred after David became king in Jerusalem, meaning David was in his late 30s by the time they began. And the goal of these wars is for Israel to finally gain possession of all land promised to Abraham, from the Euphrates River to the river of Egypt. Recall back in the books of Joshua and Judges that Israel had the opportunity to take the entire land then, but didn't, instead choosing to live among the Canaanites. And because of that, God allowed them to live in that sin by not expanding their borders. David, though, is going to actually come and finish the job of subduing the land under Israel's control. In doing this, David does not exterminate these peoples, though many do die in battle, but rather he places them under direct control of Israel's king, or he places them under indirect control through tribute. David begins with the nation closest to him, the Philistines. For over a century, the Philistines had been a thorn in Israel's side. They controlled Israel at different times during the days of Samson, Samuel, and Saul. They even tried to exert their control when David was made king over all Israel in Jerusalem, though David repelled them. Here in chapter 8, David finally subdued the Philistines and extended Israel's control over Canaan. David then turned east and attacked the people of Moab. Now, why would he do this, seeing as how Israel wasn't given the land of Moab? Due to Moab's oppression of the Israelites at different points in their history. Moab lied on the border of the tribe of Reuben, and recall that in the days of Ehud was one of Israel's main foes. It is not unreasonable to assume that this type of behavior continued at different points in time from there on out. The combatants of this war were divided into two groups, with the larger portion killed, while the other portion being allowed to live. But unlike the Philistines, who were controlled directly by David, the Moabites were placed under tribute, for again Israel was not given that land as an inheritance. David also turned far to the north to take land that God had promised to Israel up to the Euphrates by defeating Hadadezer of Zobah, destroying all his chariot horses, with the exception of enough that David could use for 100 of his own chariots. The Syrians from the east came to help Hadadezer, but they too were defeated by David. David put the peoples this far north under tribute as well, and also placed garrisons up in Damascus so that he could exert control of this region. When word of what David did came to the ears of Toi, king of Hamath, with Hamath likely being the Antioch of Syria in the days of the apostles, Toi sent his son Joram to David to greet him and bless him, for Toi had been at war with Hadadezer. Joram brought with him articles of silver, gold, and bronze as a gift that would be added to the large amount of bronze that David had captured from the cities of the north. David dedicated all these things to the Lord, for it was the Lord who provided these victories. Along with the victories in the north, David subdued other nations that had been constant enemies of Israel, placing them under tribute. The nations included the Ammonites, the Amalekites, and the Edomites. There are a couple things of note here. First, as it concerns the Amalekites. Up to this point, David had largely defeated the Amalekites in previous battles, but pockets of them still existed. On our map, we have moved the Amalekite territory from where the publishers of our map had it to where it should be, which is east and south of Edom, rather than where it is traditionally placed in the Negev, because where it is on our map is actually where the scriptures described them as being. This will be the last time in the chronological history of Israel covered in the Old Testament that we will read of the Amalekites again, showing us that God's promise to Moses back in Exodus was finally fulfilled. The second thing to note concerns the Edomites. Back in Genesis 25:23, recall what was told to Rebekah concerning Esau and Jacob. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Up until this point in Israel's history, Esau, Edom, that he would serve Jacob, Israel, hadn't really been the case. Edom rejected Israel's request to pass through their land in the days of Moses, and had been a thorn in Israel's side at different points of their history after that. In the days of David, though, they were put under tribute, fulfilling the words that God spoke to Rebekah concerning Esau. So it was that David ruled over all Israel as a much more powerful king than Saul was, having control over much more land than Saul did. He executed judgment and justice over all the people, much more than Saul ever did. Joab was the general of David's troops, while the position of high priest was taken by Zadok, the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar. Having 2 high priests was highly unusual, but remember, the articles of the tabernacle were separated at this point in time, with the Mosaic tabernacle residing in Gibeon, while the Ark of the Covenant was residing in Jerusalem, so it is likely that that is the reason there were 2 high priests. The mention of Ahimelech has confused people because we know from 1 Samuel that Abiathar was the son of Ahimelech, so why is that relationship switched here in 2 Samuel? And the answer is relatively obvious, which is that Abiathar also had a son named Ahimelech. What happened to Abiathar, whom we know escaped from the hand of Saul? Well, he is still in the picture, and it appears is also referred to as high priest, not only here in 2 Samuel, but in 1 Kings 2. So it is quite possible that just as we'll find that there are co-regencies among the kings of Israel from time to time, that Abiathar and Ahimelech acted as high priests at various times, perhaps due to an illness or an incapacitation of Abiathar, or perhaps due to some other reason. Both Ahimelech's and Abiathar's names appear far too many times in the Old Testament in relation to each other, though for this to be a mere transposition error, so this solution seems the most probable. Jehoshaphat was the recorder of David, the one who would record David's edicts, while Seraiah was the scribe, the equivalent to our Secretary of State. Over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, the king's bodyguards, was Benaiah, while David's sons were chief ministers. Verses 15 to 18 thus give us the main figures in the administration of David. Many of these names will be mentioned again later, so do make note of them. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 to 13, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.